Good afternoon and welcome to Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country presented by Citi. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events, and we are excited about today's show. Today we are going to a region in Spain called Priorat. It's outside of Barcelona. I'll tell you a little bit more about it momentarily. We are going to be talking about 3 wines for the holidays, and we'll be actually meeting with and talking live with the winemaker himself. So let me show you where we're headed. It's a particular part of Spain outside of Barcelona. So in my background here, you will see a red map pin, and that is the Priorat region. So it's quite far east and sort of north in Spain. And again, it's outside of the Barcelona is the largest nearby city. The soil is extraordinary in this area. You can see in my background these chips and blocks of slate rock that are actually make up part of the soil that the vineyards and the vines grow in. Super interesting. The Priorat region is known for a number of things, but 3 things that it's really distinctly known for are that the region was originally established by the Catholic monks in the 11th century, and they were the first people to grow grapes in the Priorat region. The other thing that's very interesting about this area is the soil, which I just mentioned, and the stones in the soil. It's ancient soil, 300 million years old. And also the fields and the hills in Priorat. It's not a flat land region. There are lots of hills and fields, and it's very rugged. And I'll show you a little later some more images of that. Where we're headed in the Priorat region is a winery called the Gratavinum winery. Gratavinum is an award-winning producer, small producer of wines, Spanish wines from that area. Very small, so they can try new concepts and make sustainably grown wines. Very natural, minimal intervention. And they're really a leader in the area of Priorat and the wine region of Priorat for having natural wines with that minimal intervention approach. And they actually had one of the 3 top best natural wines in the world as named by Decanter magazine. And they have a number of 90+ point rated wines. So welcome everybody. Please feel free to chime in and ask us questions along the way. You can do that in the chat or in the Q&A panel in Zoom. The other thing that we always like to do is have you hit the chat. If you would right now, just let us know where you're based, where you're tuning in from. We know that people tune in from all over the country, and we love to see those origin locations. So today, it's really a pleasure to work with Gratavinum. We've actually worked with the greater organization of the Gratavinum winery. We did an event with their sister winery called Parés Baltà, which is in the Penedès wine region, nearby, not far from Priorat. And it's really my pleasure today to host Jordi Fernandez, the winemaker at Gratavinum. Welcome, Jordi. It's great to have you on the show, and thank you for staying late in Spain.
It's my pleasure, Sam, to be here with you and with all the audience, and thank you for the invitation, and very happy to be with you.
So, Jordi, tell us a little bit more. First of all, how many years have you been the winemaker at Gratavinum?
So I am leading the Gratavinum project since the very beginning. It was born in 2003, May of 2003. So it has been 17 years that it has passed like a very speed rush, because we have built everything from zero, and it has been, well, building a winery from zero, it takes quite a bit of time, and we'll try to do our best, and still we are trying to improve little details to get even better quality.
And so tell us, since you've been there since the very beginning, tell us about the philosophy and the thinking and the thought process that you engaged in with the ownership to start the winery, and how you've rolled that out over the years.
Okay, so we have been playing with different concepts in the winery. First of all, for us, it has been always very important that the wines of our winery, they have to express the fruit from the grapes, from the Garnacha and Cariñera grapes. We can talk later about that, and also the extraordinary soil we have in Priorat. Okay, and this is like one of our main arguments. The wines, they have to express these two characteristics. At the same time, we are very concerned about the environment. So since the very first minute, we certify everything organic. And after 10 years, we also did the biodynamic certification with the Decanter. So we are trying to be as positive as we can in the sustainability. And this is a factor that it's helping us also at the same time to increase the quality of the wines. And the third leg, I would say that we are like a group of five friends that we are passionate for good quality wine. We have traveled from different areas in the world, tasting the best wines possible. And our aim is always to be able to produce the best quality possible. That's why in the winery, it's a very small winery, and we can play different things. We can do like new trials, new concepts. And this is one of our marks, of our signs that we are constantly developing the winemaking to reach these ideals.
Well, and I believe you're having real success because you won so many awards and got so many notices and so much attention outside of Spain, in the US and in other parts of the world. The wines show the quality of that approach. Tell us a little bit about this soil. So I don't know if this is the best picture that I have behind me, but this is like what the soil looks like with these rocks and this slate and stuff. It's kind of dramatic.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when any person thinks about Priorat and about the secret of the quality of Priorat, if there is a secret behind the quality of wines of Priorat, definitely it's the soil, okay? And as you mentioned, it's a super ancient soil, more than 300 millions of years ago. At that moment, it was coming from two different origins. One part of the soils at that moment were clay, and other part of the soils were sand. And because of the tectonic movements, they were buried underground, like with super high temperature, super high pressure. And then they transform into the slate soil that emerged from inside of the earth again, like with the tectonic movements. And nowadays we are fortunate to profit from this soil. But the picture you have in your back, you can see that there is all the, you can see it on the surface of the vineyards, but we have to imagine that they are inside of the earth. They are meters and meters and meters down. We can just find these layers of stones. And the most important thing is that the rootstock of the vines, they are touching directly the stones. And it's where it's coming the miracle. I mean, that they are taking the components of the soil, of the minerals from the soil, and they are expressing into the grapes. And that's why the wines of Priorat, of any good winery in Priorat, that there are quite a lot of good wineries in Priorat, they always have a footprint. This taste, this texture in the mouth, this refreshing because of the minerals coming again. And that's like the mark of the good wine of Priorat. Like in the best wines in the world, coming from the best terroirs, they always have this footprint from the soil, and we are privileged to work there.
So, this is another photo here on the screen of the vineyard, and you see the hill, and it's very rugged. Mm-hmm. But also, is it quite dry?
Yeah, definitely. One of the besides of the soil, another thing that characterizes Priorat is the climatology that's quite extreme. And that's because the area of Priorat is surrounded by not bad tall mountains of 1,000 meters of altitude. And then the clouds of the rain, they get many times stopped in the mountains. So inside of the area of Priorat, we are only receiving on average 430 millimeters a year, which is very, very low. And then here it comes like one of the main decisions that the wineries and the vine growers do in Priorat, which is irrigating or no irrigating. Okay, irrigation is allowed in Priorat, but in our case at Gratavinum, we are non-irrigating the vineyards because what we want is that the plants, they have to push down their roots to survive. It's as easy as that. If they push down the roots, they survive because of the lack of water, and if they don't do, they just die at that moment. Okay, but then the plants that they do this effort, very soon they are taking amazing minerality from the soil, even if they are plants of only 10 or 15 years old. And well, like the main reason for being in Priorat, it's showing the soil, and we believe that this is the best way we have for doing.
Now this is the town that you're in or that you're near, yeah? And you can see the dramatic like cliffs and the precipices and the rock. This is everything that composes the soil and the land, correct?
Yeah, that's true. That's Gratallops, the village where we have the winery, and we have like 90% of our vineyards. And it's super funny because if you see this village, it's only 250 inhabitants in winter living there, but we have 25 wineries and 7 restaurants and 2 hotels. So it's amazing. It's a ratio for 10 inhabitants per winery. I don't know if there is another village in the world with this kind of ratio.
That's amazing. So there's actually 25 wineries just in your village alone?
Yeah.
It's
also true that Gratallops, probably together with Porrera, it's maybe the 2 more famous villages in Priorat, no? But yeah, it's amazing the quantity of wineries we have there.
And you can see in my background here that the influence from the 10th and the 11th century, the Moors, because the church has this square steeple, right? It's got that shape. It's the classic Spanish church, which goes back to the Moors, right? Being in Spain.
In fact, in Priorat area, there is like a small village up in one of the hills that it's called Siurana, and that was the last fortress of the Moors in Catalonia. That they resist there till 12th century. And well, the fact that the monks they were coming into the area was to repopulate the area after the conquest to the Moors. And well, it has been like this in Spain and many countries in Europe, and they introduced the vineyard to do the wine for celebration. So it's very nice to have these roots linked to the history, no?
Very nice indeed. So our theme today is holiday wines, and specifically we're going to be sampling, virtually tasting, and talking about 3 wines from the Gratavinum winery. And so let's get started. We've given everybody the background, the soil, some of the history of the area. It's super interesting. The first wine is the Silvestris. Am I right?
Yeah.
And this is a wine that was actually named. It's the one that was named one of the best natural wines in the world by the Decanter magazine. And this one it's somewhat lighter in body and profile. But tell us a little bit about this wine, and I'll put it up on my screen in the background here. I believe this is it here. Yeah.
This is the Dolce Piquet.
That's the Dolce Piquet. Here's the Silvestris. Yeah, and I'll put it on full screen too. But so this is a light, refreshing red wine, which can be great with a number of different meals that people prepare for the holidays. Tell us about this wine, the grapes, and the flavor profile.
Great. So this wine was born in 2011 as one of the the trials we were doing in the winery. So I decided to do this small trial, producing a wine without any kind of added sulfites. That's like the most common definition for a natural wine.
So let me just stop you. Has no added sulfites whatsoever?
Completely zero
Wow.
added sulfites.
And what, before you talk more about the specifics of the wine, what does that do when you have no sulfites? I mean, because anybody who drinks wine, when you look at the label, it says contains sulfites. Every bottle of wine, almost every one you drink. What does removing the sulfites do for the wine and for the experience of consuming the wine?
So of course the sulfites, it's like the most important additive that the wineries use all around the world. I would say that 97-98% of the wine produced in the world, they contain sulfites, because the sulfites, it has like a double action. For one side, it's protecting the wine against oxidation, because when it's a molecule of oxygen arriving to the wine, the sulfite, it's taking this oxygen for itself. And for second part, it's very heavy against microorganisms, against bacteria and yeast. So once you have finished the fermentations and you protect the wine with the sulfites, you are more prevented to any microorganism to affect the wine and to take out the quality. No?
So it helps to basically delay or slow down the oxidization process, which we all know is very hard on wine. And number two, it prevents the growth of microorganisms from things like yeast in the wine.
Yeah.
Now with this wine with no sulfites, what's the result?
Yeah, so what I feel about natural wine like this, or natural wines from other areas that I taste, that always I found that they have a plus on intensity. I mean, it has to be like that, no? You are not adding a component that it's like restringing a little bit the wine itself. And the natural wines, usually they have a plus on intensity, I would say on life or on soul, or say it like you want. But you can feel it when you are tasting one of that kind of wines. And for another side, so there are certain part of the population that they have problems because they are sensitive to sulfites, and many times they associate to headaches or that the wine don't feel good for the body. And that kind of natural wines, so they are perfect for that kind of persons, because they don't give these troubles that the sulfites can arrive to give to the humans. No.
So now I have a question. A lot of people say when they drink red wine, they love the taste, but it gives them a headache. Is that usually from the sulfites or from the tannins?
It can have different origins. Of course, it can come from the sulfites, it can come from the tannins, but also it can come as subproducts of the alcoholic fermentation and malolactic fermentation, because the lactic bacteria that they are producing the malolactic fermentation, they can give, if they are not, if it's not produced in a good way, they can give certain molecules to the wine that they are also associated to headache. That it's like the amine biogen and the histamine, for example. So yeah, you can have different origins. That of course the sulfites, it's one of the reasons.
Okay, so tell us about. I put the Silvestris wine back up on the screen here. Tell us about this wine, the flavor profile, and maybe suggest a food or a meal that goes with it.
Okay, so well, this wine is a blend with an 85% of Carignana. It's one of the local grapes in Priorat, blended with a 15% of Syrah. That it's not local from Priorat, but it's one of the grapes authorized in Priorat. And I choose these two varietals because they have a natural tendency to reduction. So one thing that with this I wanted to balance the possible tendency to oxidation because no sulfites on it, and that's why I choose these two varietals. And for another side, we are picking the grapes a little early than usual to have like lower pH, higher acidity, and to make it more fresh. I mean, in general, the wines of Priorat, they are always very, with a lot of body, they are heavy, they are wines with tannins, they are wines too much with food. This has to be very clear. But inside of the wall of wines of Priorat, this profile like the Silvestris, they have less tannins on it because they have a shorter period of maceration, and with the higher acidity, it's a wine. It's more playing on the black fruits, but like fresh black fruits, not jammy black fruits like it's the most habitual in Priorat. And that's why I think it's a very good wine for just before starting a meal, doing a glass with the friends, or just eating a little bit of charcuterie or anything, any easy thing. And of course, you can go more further away and pair it with meat or fish, no? But it's a wine that it's not so complicated to match with any kind of food as the other two that we will be tasting afterwards.
So this is a red blend, two different grapes, Carignan, and what's the second grape?
Syrah.
Syrah. So
Syrah.
Everybody watching, if you would, go in the chat and just give a yes or no. Have you ever had a wine that is completely made from Carignan, which is a somewhat well-known grape, but not well-known to a lot of Americans per se? Say yes or no, and also to Syrah, because this is part of our mission at New York Wine Events is getting people to discover new wines and different types of wines, but also grape varietals. And as I always like to say, we Americans are boring. We drink Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, maybe Pinot Noir, maybe Merlot, but there are 5,000 grape varieties in the world that make wine. And so here's a wine that's absolutely delicious. It was world recognized as one of the top natural wines in the world. And it's made from two grapes that most Americans probably have never even had. So very interesting. And I think you said something else that was particularly notable here, Jordi, and that is that this is a wine for drinking while, this can be the wine you drink in the kitchen while you're cooking the holiday meal.
Example.
Because it's a blend, it's easy drinking, and you don't have to pair it with a food. So I think that you had mentioned when we spoke recently, drink while you're cooking, but you can also have it with some light charcuterie or light cheese as well. So, all right. So wine number 2 is the GV5, which I think stands for, correct me if I'm wrong, Gratavinum 5.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is a more full-bodied red wine, and is it single varietal?
No, it's also, it has two varietals. It's 90% of Carignana again, but in this case coming from very old vineyards, between 50 up to 70 years old, and combined with a 10% of Garnacha. So in this case, we are playing with the two local grapes of Priorat.
I'm gonna put that up on the screen, because this one is also another really elegant and minerality wine that's typical of that rocky soil, that incredible landscape where you have the winery. So tell us a little bit about the blend, the grapes, and this one I think we have a food pairing recommendation.
Yeah, definitely. So from the two main grapes of Priorat, Garnacha and Carignana, I feel, well, Garnacha definitely it's much more popular than Carignana, but for the winemakers that we are working in Priorat, we all know that Carignana it's like the one that it has the capacity of better transmitting the character of the soil. Okay, and in this case, all or biggest part of the top wines from Priorat, they are always coming from all vineyards of Carignana because they are kind of more deep. They are showing more kind of complexity. They are showing mostly the soil, the balsamic character. And like this one, now we are tasting a 2013. So it's a wine that it has already slipped as minimum 5 years on the bottle. So now the wine itself, it has developed quite a bit. It has super smooth tannins with their good quality tannins. I call it sweet tannins. And it's showing an amazing, an extraordinary complexity, freshness. It's a wine that it's remembering you about the stones again and again, and it's a wine that definitely it needs something strong for pairing with food. I definitely recommend as meat, so it can go perfectly with turkey, with duck, with a nice steak, I mean, it's a wine that it needs some serious meat in front of it because it has a lot of capacity for that.
Yeah, so I'm putting in the chat what we're having for our main holiday meal, which we'll have on Christmas Eve. We're having turkey as the main event or the main dish in our meal, and so this one would go great with turkey and with other meats that are sort of in the medium to more full in flavor profile. And I think that I think this also goes really well with steak. I don't know what other people have. I mean, I know a lot of people have duck, turkey, ham for the Christmas meal or the holiday meal here in the States. Excellent. So wine number 3 is an award winner. This is the Dolce Den Piquet, which is a red blend, I believe, and it's a late harvest wine from Priorat. So tell us a little bit about this one. I will put it up on my screen in the background here, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, it's kind of a typical wine because it's a late harvest red wine. It's not so habitual to have that style of wine. And it's a blend between Garnacha and Cariñena, mainly 50-50. So the thing is that like we are very low watering on the area, and we have very high temperatures. The process of over ripening in the vineyards, it's quite easy to be produced, and we don't have to wait too much until November or December to pick the grapes. So many times at the end of October, the grapes they have completely lost a big part of the water inside, so they have become raisins, and that's that moment that we are picking that grapes. We are doing the regular process in the winery for fermentation, but of course, when it arrives to the moment that it has the amount of sugar that we want to leave as residual, we just stop the fermentation by applying a lot of cold temperature, and then it goes directly 1 year into the barrel, and from the barrel to the bottle. No, the key point on this wine is many times the sweet wines or the wines that they have some residual sugar, if they are too high on sugar, they can arrive to tire the people because the sugar is like fatiguing a little bit. So the main concept on this wine is to find the balance between the sugar and the wine itself, the acidity, the minerality, to make it very appealing, very easy to enjoy. And many times people would think about a sweet wine, it's a wine for dessert. But in this case, we are breaking a little bit the rule, and I would recommend best this wine as aperitif, and mainly if you are using cheese. Okay, so for me, this wine is just a killer doing pairing with cheese, but you need some kind of a strong cheese like blue cheese, curated cheese, that cheese that it's always having like a little bit of saltiness on it, like the Gruyere, like the Comté, like the Parmigiano, like an old Manchego from Spain. Any kind of good cheese with intensity, then it's doing a magical match with this wine.
How sweet is this wine? Is it as sweet as a typical dessert wine?
If we look the figure in this particular vintage, it's 80 grams of residual sugar, which it is quite. It's not low, we would say, but the thing is that when you taste the wine, you don't realize that level of sugar, because like the balance we were saying about before with the acidity, with the minerality, the wine, when you drink it, you feel a lot the character of the raisin, but you don't feel too much the sugar. And that's why I could even don't recommend this wine with a very sweet dessert, because the dessert will be sweeter than the wine and it will not properly.
Right. And that's a great point. And the fact of the matter is that we talk about the balance, when you're doing a pairing, that you want the wine, if it's a light wine, you want a light food. If it's a heavier wine or a bigger wine, you want a food with a big flavor profile. And in this case, even though it is a sweeter wine, a sweet dessert is going to overwhelm or overpower the wine. The other thing I just noticed on the label here is this is 15.7% alcohol content. So this is a very strong wine. This is not one that you want to drink fast.
Well, yeah, always. I mean, among the vintages, the level of alcohol, it can go from 15 up to 16. That's the most habitual, and like that. But at the other side, again, we are looking the balance, and of course, the figure of alcohol is quite high. But once you drink, you don't feel so much that. And always, I recommend also to serve this wine little chilled that it could be any other red wine. So for my recommendation would be around 12 to 14 Celsius. That would be the best because then the wine, you can feel it more fresh, we would say.
Yep, absolutely. I am putting in the 3 wines in the chat right now, so everybody knows what they are. And then we'll look at the D'Espagna, which is a great resource, D'Espagna Fine Wines, where you can find these wines from Spain and other wines from Spain as well. But that's a resource for those of us in the U.S. I think one thing that people don't fully understand is that in the U.S. you can't always get some of these really wonderful Spanish wines. There's a lot of great Spanish wine that never leaves Spain, which is a shame because there are some really great ones. But I put in the chat all 3 wines, and then I'm going to share my screen again so that everybody can see the URL of the store. It's D'Espagna Fine Wines, and it's right there on the screen. They have these 3 wines and other Spanish wines as well. But obviously today our point is to show and to discuss some great Spanish wines for the holidays. We spend a lot of time talking about wines from California, wines from France, even New York State, but there's a world of wine in Spain that is absolutely extraordinary, and it's worth exploring. So, Jordi, any final thoughts? Do you want to share what's going to be on your table for the holidays for wine this year?
Still, I haven't taken the decision because we are still looking if we will be able to join the families because there are some restrictions because of the COVID. So I think once I will know if I will join with all the rest of my family or I will do it local at my own place with my wife and my kid, then I will take the final decision. But always, I like to start with, we usually in Spain, we do like an appetizer based many times on shellfish. So for that occasions, I would choose like a nice white based on charelo, for example, that it's matching very nice with shellfish. And of course, for the main plate, we would choose like some red wine, probably a Priorat, but like many years I tried Priorat. Maybe I could go for some other areas, but always looking for a strong and heavy wine to match with the main course as you do in the States. So,
yeah, absolutely. By the way, for everyone watching, I just put in the chat in Zoom the Gratavinum website, which has a wealth of information about Gratavinum, the winery, the wines. And I have one final question, Jordi. And by the way, anybody watching, if you want to ask Jordi any questions before we sign off, please do. But if we want to, and I know I do, if we want to come and see you, I assume there are places we can stay nearby in the village, for example, which we see here on the screen. But it's obviously we can fly to Barcelona, and it's a quick, about 1 hour and a half?
From Barcelona, it's like a couple of hours, we would say.
Couple of hours. Yep.
Yeah. And inside of the area, of course, there are not many options that like big hotels. There are some hotels, but but it's not like a big proportion, but it's plenty of small guest houses, like rural houses, that they are open to receive people. And we have to imagine that Priorat is an area that the tourism we have in Priorat, it's because of the wine. People, it's going there to visit wineries, to enjoy the wine, to enjoy the amazing landscape. I definitely recommend Priorat because these mountains, these hills, everything planted with vineyards, the soil, it's like a magical landscape. And definitely we are super happy always to receive people from all over the world. And we hope that after all this disease, it's passing by to receive again like the wine lovers from all over the world, because many times I introduce people Priorat like it's like Toscana like 30 years ago when it was not massified by tourism, but many times the landscape of Toscana, the history, the culture, the food, it's many times reminding of Priorat, but at this moment Priorat is still like very not so well known. It's not receiving so much quantity of people, so it's a great opportunity to discover.
Well, you know what we call that? We call that a hidden gem. And so you heard it here, everybody. Priorat is like Tuscany, but 30, 40 years ago when Tuscany was still not overrun with tourists all the time. So I think we're going to come in the fall, in about 9 or 10 months from now, we'll be visiting in Priorat with you guys.
That could be great. And yeah, the two moments of the year that I recommend the most for visiting Priorat, it's spring and autumn. In summer, it's very, very warm. You have to be brave. But yeah, in the spring, everything it's green, and in autumn, well, it's the moment of the harvest, and it's magical. So hoping to receive you and all the audience to the area and to discover this amazing place.
And I assume there you have a tasting room at the winery, so when people visit, they can spend a few hours, they can taste wine, they can learn about the winery, etc.
In fact, we were betting a lot on wine tourism at Gratavinum. Even we are a super small winery, but we were giving like different options of visits. Like people can come directly to the winery and visit directly, but we were also offering like a 5-star visit where we were taking people on a 4x4 car, doing a tour through our vineyards, doing a small appetizer with local charcuterie. I mean, it's a visit that it takes like 4 hours to do it, but to do like an appetizer in the middle of the vineyard with amazing landscape views. I mean, people was always fascinated with that, no? So I invite people to come to Priorat to discover Priorat, and when we are drinking Priorat, many times we are not just drinking a wine, we are drinking a landscape, we are drinking the history of the area, we are drinking the human effort, because cultivating the vines there, it's super hard. It's a lot of human effort behind of every bottle of Priorat, and it's very wonderful to make people come and discover all these facts.
No, it's great. Well, Jordi, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this today. It's been an education in all things Priorat and in wine from the Catalonia region in Spain. And if for anybody who's interested, you can get these wines at D'Espanya Fine Wines in New York City, and they do ship to other states. So if you're not in New York, and thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. We will see you soon on Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country, and stay safe and have a safe and healthy holiday season, everyone. Thank you, Jordi.
Thank you very much, Sam. A pleasure.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.